Hey, this is Finx MTG here with a deck tech on Caesar, Legion's Emperor. Now, this deck is focused on a soldier theme that uses the mighty Caesar to go and create an army of soldier tokens. And as you're building up that army, you're doing lots of damage to your enemies. And at the same time, you can use Caesar's ability as well as your other creatures and spells in the deck to effectively drain your opponents out using your army as a resource. So one of the key features of this deck, and as I go through the deck here, I'm going to be showing you all of the real cards. You can see the different artwork and everything and the style that I created for this one here. But we have a gain soldiers and drain the opponent's deck here. If you want to check out the full deck list, check out the Moxfield link. But the idea of this one is a 4 mana red, white, and black commander. When you attack, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, choose 2. Create 2 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens with haste that are tapped and attacking. Those would be these over here, which are pretty nice because they come in with haste and attacking. You could also use the one you draw a card and you lose 1 life. And then the final one, which is what we're building up to. We don't really do that early on. Again, this is a bit of a build-up deck to get to something interesting. You have this card deals damage equal to the number of creature tokens you control to target opponent. And as you can see, we're going to be making an army of soldiers. So we're going to be able to drain people for a lot of damage on that. Now, this one is target opponent. We do have some other spells in the deck that work a little better. But the idea is that you want to get Caesar out on, say, turn 3 if possible, turn 4 if you have to. And a turn or few before that, you would get out a soldier token or any creature token that you can sacrifice on the attack. Now, the great thing with this, you can leave Caesar back. He does not have to attack. It's whenever you attack, you can sacrifice another creature. So that the other creature can be attacking, and then you can just sacrifice your 1/1 before it dies in combat and trigger the abilities. And primarily, you want to start building up your soldier army here and just swing at whoever doesn't have blockers so that they don't die. And you can keep going with this. And of course, you'll be drawing a lot of cards too, because you get to draw a card and lose 1 life on it. So that's the general theme here. And to do that process, we have a lot of things that are going to be helping us out when our creatures are fighting or being created or dying. We have cards like Bastion of Remembrance. And again, you see the Fallout card here. Now, this is around a power level 7 or bracket 3 deck. There's like 2 game changers in it, but it is very versatile. And that's why I liked playing with this deck. It can deal with a lot of other types of decks. And at the same time, it can be really powerful, but it is a slow build into what you're trying to do. So for this one, we have Bastion of Remembrance. Comes in, makes a soldier with the theme. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is around that sort of aristocrat style strategy where, again, when your creatures are coming in, you're going to be sacrificing them, they're going to be dying, and then you can be draining each opponent and gaining life at the same time, which is very nice. We also have here a Sadistic Pilgrim, and he is a 2/2 death touch, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life, and whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So again, the each opponent one, we have to keep track here of the different types of triggers. And again, when one's entering, when something's dying, each opponent, target opponent. So you see, you do have to keep track of the triggers here, but it is a lot of fun once it starts rolling along. We also have Commissar, Severina Arain. Whenever Commissar attacks, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. It's a 2/2, which is not that great because it can die easily, but it also has the ability of paying 2, sacrifice another creature, you gain 2 life, and draw a card. We have a lot of abilities in this deck that benefit us when we're sacrificing creatures or the creatures are dying. This card seems to be very scary for people, so they tend to try and kill this early on with removal. So I'll play this earlier on to have it be removed and then play kind of one of the bombs later on. So again, this is doing exactly what we want. When we're swinging in with a ton of creatures, we're draining each opponent for a giant amount of life. So that's the effective strategy here. War Leader's Call goes exactly with everything that we're trying to do. It pumps up our 1/1 so that they don't die as quickly. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So even just triggering the ability on the commander here, you are going to be bringing 2 tokens in, dealing 2 damage to each opponent, and they would be 2/2s. So this is one of the stronger cards in the deck in terms of how the deck plays out. So you see some of the drain effects that we have here and the Aristocrat abilities. Some of the main items that we can get to that can get us to the win are also cards like Fervent Charge. Whenever a creature attacks, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Now keep in mind, you have to have your army on the board for this one. And when you do the ability here, that creature comes in already attacking, so it doesn't get the +2/+2. But still, this is a giant boost. And you can see the Surge foil here is pretty nice on these Fallout cards here. It's kind of like the Lord of the Rings foiling as well. Very nice. So this is one of our weaker ones, though. We have Shared Animosity, which is just brutal because almost everything in the deck, and we have some that are human soldiers and we have some that are regular soldiers, but because they're soldiers, they're getting +1/+0 for each other attacking creature that shares that creature type with it. So this one you usually hold on to and you can play to either take out a player immediately or potentially go for a win on your turn. Because again, if you're attacking with 6 of the soldiers here, then each one would be getting +5/+0. Pretty incredible way to boost up your guys there. Moonshaker Cavalry. This one, now what happens late game, maybe there's another token deck. This can get around that by giving all your creatures a Crater Hoof effect of +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control, but it also gives them flying, which is very important because that evasion allows you to close out the game. Because at the end of the game, if nobody's doing board wipes, there's going to be a ton of creatures on the board and you won't be able to get through with your 1/1s. So that comes in handy here. And again, this deck is a soldier themed deck. So it's not quite as strong as, let's say, an elf deck or a slivers deck or a humans deck with, Rick from The Walking Dead in it. Those might be a little bit more powerful directly, but we make up for that with our style of play and the versatility and the removal options that we have in our color palette here. Next up, we have an amazing card in this deck. One of the best reasons to play this color. Like whenever I play this, it pretty much is a win. And this full art looks really cool as well. This one has Destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. This is one of the cards that you'd probably tutor for when you do have a tutor. And this one effectively clears the board for all of your attacks, leaves your board completely intact, and leaves your enchantments and everything else. So yes, this is a brutal one-sided board wipe. It's better than a Cyclonic Rift because they can't even play the cards. It is pricey, so it's a light game card, but one of our win conditions. So there you have a few of the options here to close out the game. We also have nice little things like Seize the Spotlight. This card is great in a lot of decks. When you can sacrifice the creature that you steal from the opponents, it's great. You can do that directly to your commander here to trigger the ability. And also, if they don't want to give you the creature to attack, and again, we're slowly draining the life of the table here, so we need to be able to keep constant pressure on them. And by stealing somebody's 8/8 creature that they just happen to sneak out onto the board is a great way to do that. And a lot of times they're not going to want to give you that creature, so instead they're going to give you a treasure token. And each of the players that doesn't give you a creature gives you a treasure token. So that's a great way to ramp up. And again, this is on turn 2 or 3 that you could get this out. So you would be having plenty of mana and resources when you do get your commander out on the board. And to play a lot of soldiers, we have cards like Secure the Waste. This one makes a 1/1 white warrior creature token. Now, this one actually isn't soldiers, but it does work in the effect that it's an instant. So you had to put this in the deck because it only costs 1 white mana. And basically what you can do here is wait until a turn cycle is coming around to you, see if anybody plays any board wipes or anything. Maybe you have Caesar on the board already. Then you cast this one, put on 5 or 6 of the 1/1 soldiers, and then you can really go off on the abilities or maybe pumping them up with other spells and effects. We also have Martial Coup. Create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So this one's great when the board gets kind of full of stuff and you just need something to clear it out. But usually after a board wipe, you kind of waste the turn because you have nothing left on the board. This one, you wipe the board and you have a full army ready to go. And then the next turn you can cast Caesar and start going off again on your strategy. And what's nice about Caesar is that draw a card and lose a life ability there it gets negated by our life gain effects, and at the same time, you're able to keep your hand pretty large while other people are expending all of their resources. So as the game progresses, you have a bit of a value engine that just keeps pumping out good stuff. Horn of Gondor. When it enters, you make a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. 3 tap, create 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens, where X is the number of humans you control. So it's making soldiers, but this ability on the second part here can get out of control very quickly. Even if you only have, say, 2 guys on the board, you do it once, it makes 2. You do it again, you have 4 on the board, so it's going to make 4 more, and then you have 8 total. So you can see how just in 2 turns, this can make a giant army out of nowhere. And the people that have played against this card, they usually know that and call it out when they see it. But this is a great addition here from the Lord of the Rings set. We also have Horn of Valhalla. This one creates X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens, which is the primary mode that you're going to be casting it on. 2 white and X. And then you also send it on its little adventure, goes off to the exile zone, and then you can have it come in and give a creature +1/+1 for each creature you control. This is not really the primary. I wouldn't cast it even though it's only 2 mana for that, unless I've already used this ability. The idea of this is that you won't have to discard cards out of your hand if you're casting this into the exile zone, and you still have this additional card here in the exile zone that you can cast from the adventure. Sometimes you draw a lot of cards here, and you do need that. We have Assemble the Legion. This card, yes, it is slow, but it looks really cool. It goes with the theme. And at the same time, when I get this card out earlier, if you you'll see I have a lot of mana rocks and items to like seize the spotlight. You'll be able to get this out several turns faster than you normally would be able to do. And with that, this thing kind of gets out of control because every upkeep you're putting a muster counter on it, and you're assembling your Legion and making those 1/1 red and white soldier creature tokens. And they have haste, which is also nice. Then we have the weird art of Elspeth, which is the only art I had, so I had to put this one in the deck. I wouldn't recommend it because nobody can read it. But the idea here is we don't care about any of this stuff really, except create 3 soldiers. Each is a 1/1 creature. Pretty good. The other one, you might come in handy sometimes if somebody has maybe a token deck and then they put counters on all the tokens. So this one is -3. All creatures in play with power 4 or greater are destroyed. So it would hit our commander, but if somebody has a large board state where they've pumped up all the creatures, you can use this as well as a last resort. So there we have a number of effects to just basically fill the board with our soldiers. We also have our typical soldiers that are drafted into our military here. We have Cathar Commando, 2 mana, 3/1 flash. Remember, it's flash because sometimes I play it and I forget about that and I just play it on my turn. But it's better if you don't have it out so it can skip maybe board wipes or removal. Or somebody will play an enchantment like Smothering Tithe or Ristic Study or Black Market Connections or any of those or Ghostly Prism. Then you would be in trouble, right? So you have this. After they cast it, then with Flash, you can bring this in. And if you have 3 mana, you can just spend it right there to destroy whatever that target that's a menace is. We also have Mentor of the Meek, 3 mana, 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, pay 1. And then if you do, you draw a card. So again, we're keeping up with the card draw here. As we're playing stuff from our hand, it's falling into our strategy and building up more card advantage through card draw. Company Commander. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 soldier creature tokens equal to the number of opponents you have, which should be 3. When she attacks, I believe, whenever a company commander attacks, creatures you control gain death touch until end of turn. So again, this one's nice because again, a lot of our guys start out as 1/1s. So this makes them into a bigger threat where people are not going to want to block. And again, we have to drain the opponent's life. So if they don't want to block, that's good for us. We'll start doing the damage, and then we'll come in with a finisher like Shared Animosity. We also have Boromir, Warden of the Tower. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. That is very nice against decks that try to cascade. And you can see here how some of the effects on these cards go really well with not only the synergies, but setting up for the versatility of the deck to play against a variety of other decks. So this works against Cascade, works against people that play the Foretell items like that, and people that want to have high power stuff like Fierce Guardianship. It would counter those spells, which is pretty incredible. Also, if you're trying to protect your guys, you can sacrifice him. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, and the ring tempts you. Not really a major factor in this, but again, the indestructible point is the main point of this. 3/3 vigilance is also not bad for 3 mana. Does a lot of work for a little guy here. We also have Faramir from Lord of the Rings as well, Field Commander. Beginning of your end step, if a creature died under your control this turn, draw a card. We want a creature dying under our control every turn, at least to our commander's ability, if not something else. Whenever the ring tempts you, if you choose a creature other than this dude, Field Commander as your ring bearer, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So again, making more tokens. Captain of the Watch. Yes, it's 6 mana, but it's a 3/3 that makes other soldiers you control get +1/+1 in vigilance. The vigilance enables you to swing out and still have blockers for the crackback from other players. And when it enters, you create 3 1/1 soldier creature tokens. So that's a lot of presence on the board just with one card. Sometimes I would be holding this one up in case somebody does do a board wipe and wipes out my smaller army that I got going on. I just cast this next turn and come right back into the game. We also have Myrel, just because Myrel is awesome. So she basically turns off your opponents on your turn. They can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Whenever she attacks, create soldier tokens equal to the number of soldiers you control. And these are artifact creature tokens, but they're still soldiers, so it goes with our theme. And again, that can pump up the amount of guys on board really fast there. So this, again, you see is like 2 different abilities, plus it's a soldier that's a large body on the board as well. We also have a rescue retriever because every army needs its trusty dog companion. This one is a 3/3 flash. When it enters the battlefield, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each soldier you control. You can use this aggressively as you're swinging into the opponents. They block thinking they're going to kill all your guys, and you pump them up and deal some more damage and take out their stuff. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to other attacking soldiers you control. So if you just want to keep your guys alive as well, you can use that ability, or it just helps them survive the combat. There you have some of our soldier army that are going to be helping us out. And you know, we are making a lot of tokens. So there are some cards that work really well with that, like Anointed Procession. We have to have some of the doublers in here, right? If we're in a tokens deck and we have white, you need to have at least Anointed Procession. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. But if you're going to have Anointed Procession and you're building your army, why not bump it up a notch to Mondrak Glory Dominus. 4 mana. It's not a soldier, unfortunately, but 4/4. If 1 or more tokens would be created, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. This includes for us treasure tokens on cards that create treasures, which is also nice. And the other thing is sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures. Again, artifacts or creatures. So really you're paying 1 mana and 4 life here with the Phyrexian mana. Put in an indestructible counter on Mondrak. So once you get this out, you can usually protect it so that it stays on the board. It's very hard to deal with. And if you're doing Mondrak and you're making extra tokens, why not go one step even crazier and play Ogier Tak Deepest Foundation. 6 mana, 6/6 Vigilance God. If 1 or more tokens would be created, creature tokens would be created under your control, 3 times as many of those tokens are created instead. And when it dies, it returns transformed on the battlefield, tapped under its owner's control. And just quickly, I will show you that one. But the idea here is that this thing by itself is like a win condition where you will be able to make so many tokens that it's hard for anybody to keep up and it's hard to do the math. So here you can see it just adds a white mana, or you can pay 3, tap it, activate only if you attack with 3 or more creatures this turn, and transform it. So again, once this gets on the board, it's very hard to get rid of. So we have 2 of these, which are hard to remove here. And we have an enchantment an enchantment is naturally hard to remove as well. So that's the way we increase our tokens. And again, these cards like Caesar here that say make 2 tokens instead of just 1, kind of like Hazon that makes the Sand Warriors. It's very powerful when you're not just making 1, you're making 2. So if you have this out, you're making 4. If you have Ogier out, you're making 6 tokens by sacrificing 1/1/1 token. That's pretty incredible value right there. To get up to the mana value of these, we also have some helper cards here. We have cards like Solemn Simulacrum, which again, you know, it's not great, but I find that this works really well in decks that work with the synergy of it. We don't have land wrap in these particular colors, so Solemn gets our land wrap. Helps us if we're missing one of the colors that we need, because again, it is a 3-color deck. Then when it dies, we draw a card, and we're going to be sacrificing it to Caesar anyway, or we're just going to be having to deal some damage. So all the effects here and abilities just go well with what we're trying to do. And a very nice art style Surge foil from Fallout here on this one. Kind of a cool image here as well. We have Mahadi Emporium Master, 1 black red, 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. This card is pretty incredible. When you get it out, you realize after drawing so many cards with Caesar and then having 3 tokens die, or however many tokens die, you're making 3 treasures. You can cast a lot of instants from your hand as the turn cycle goes around. So it works very well in that regard. Very powerful card, and I'm tending to put this in a lot more decks now that I'm seeing its power, but of course in a token deck works great. We also have Pitiless Plunderer. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a treasure token. And that includes, so if they do a board wipe, it also creates the treasure tokens there, just so you remember. This one, Black Market Connections. This is one of the best cards in the deck in terms of the functionality. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1 or more, create a treasure, you lose a life, draw a card, you lose 2 life, or make a shapeshifter and lose 3 life. This is a 3/2, and because it's a shapeshifter, it is also a soldier. So just by playing Black Market Connections on turn 3, on your next turn, you pay 6 life, so you would have a treasure token, a card, and a soldier. You would be able to cast your commander, and then you would be able to use your ability on your commander to draw another card and make even more tokens. So it just goes really well with the synergies of the deck. And if you're lucky enough to get out something like Bastion of Remembrance, then you're able to gain life back when your stuff is dying. So usually you want to only use a Black Market Connections and pay maybe 6 life or 12 life. You never pay more than, if you pay more than 12 life, you're going to probably lose the game because of all the damage you took. But I definitely do a full send at least once, because that's the fun of it, right? Anyway, Rakdos Signet. Now look at how many different types of mana ramp we have in here. It's 3 colors. We got to make sure that we cast our commander on curve. If you don't, the game really slows down. You really need him as a value engine to get things going. And again, by himself, when he comes out, he's not like these commanders that just instantly win the game if they're not answered right away. It's not like some crazy dragon that does that or something. It's takes a little bit of time, so people sometimes leave him out for a little longer. We have Talisman of Hierarchy from Fallout, Talisman of Indulgence, Talisman of Conviction. We're going to be taking damage here, but we do have ways to gain life. Orzhov Signet, Arcane Signet from Fallout, a nice Soul Ring from Fallout, Springleaf Drum, because we have so many creatures on the board. This is very easy to turn into mana. And you see there, that's a lot of cards that help with our mana ramp. So again, we're usually not struggling to have the proper mana that we need to really go off and do what we want to do. And in case we're just ramping and other people build out their board ahead of us, maybe they have some commanders that are really strong. We also have cards like the Meat Hook Massacre to clear the board and prepare it for our army to conquer. When this enters the battlefield, each creature gets -X until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life. Again, you have to be aware of the triggers when you're playing this deck. That is one thing that's a little bit difficult. If it's your creature dying, if it's an opponent's, if it's each opponent that loses life, or if it's just a target. But the idea is here is this is doing everything you want, clears the board, and life gain and life loss for the opponents. Life gain for us. Blasphemous Act from Fallout, the nice full art version here. The best board wipe in red at the current moment. And then we have a Farewell, just in case things get too out of hand, or it's a deck that we just need to deal with. Again, this can exile graveyards, which is very important. We have limited ways to do that, and sometimes decks go a little bit crazy with that. And you have decks that do land recursion from the graveyard, or they have the enchantments like a Amulet of Vigor or something like that in play, or a Burgeoning or something like that. So this also helps with those kind of cards. gets them out of play. And again, if you're exiling it, that means that Bolas Citadel is not coming back. You're exiling it completely. So this is good when you just need to reset and start building over again. It does slow the game down a bit, but I feel like it works well here, and you cast it, at the time when you need it. We also have nice ways to draw cards. We have Deadly Dispute. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or a creature. And again, we're making treasure tokens, so it can be that if we don't have our 1/1s. You draw 2 cards and create a treasure token. Fallout art here of a barroom brawl. Skull Clamp, just a great card to draw a lot of cards in a token deck. That's a staple right there. Morbid Opportunist. Whenever one or more other creatures you control or other creatures die, draw a card. It only triggers once per turn, but because it triggers on the opponent's creatures dying too, it potentially can go around the turn cycle and be drawing you a card on each of those turns, which is pretty nice. So at first people look at this and they think, oh, it's not that good because if this dies, you only draw 1 card. But it's like if you have something where you can sack it, you can play the other card that we had here to, sack it on somebody else's turn and trigger this. There's a number of different things you can do that work really well. And you can see we're going to be drawing a lot of cards with this deck. Peeked ahead here a little bit. We have Braid's Arisen Nightmare. In a tokens deck or a extra lands decks or an artifacts decks, this is just a staple card. At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. I don't know why you do a planeswalker. That's a weird one. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. When they don't, because they never want to, that player loses 2 life and you draw a card. If you sacrifice a land, nobody's going to want to sacrifice a land. The token in a board state that's late game, they're going to have creatures that they can sacrifice. But early on, when you're sacrificing a token, it's irrelevant to you. But to somebody else, they're not going to want to sacrifice their creature that they cast from their hand. And they would be losing that card and it would be putting significantly back in the card advantage game. So this is a great card here. Also slowly draining our opponents because they will be taking the 2 life usually for a while. I've had games that just between these two, I've drawn so many cards in a match. It gets pretty crazy. We also have Firemane Commando. Whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures, draw a card. 4/3 that's flying is good because you can also block enemy flyers or when they try and give an evasion or if you have to deal with some dragons or angels or something like that. Whenever another player attacks with 2 or more creatures, they draw a card if none of those creatures attacked you. So some of the games, again, if you're going against like a Sephiroth deck or one of the Aristocrat decks, that's really just the primary focus is that, they can do that more quickly than you can. You have to deal with it in other ways by the versatility of your deck. You can't just outrun them. This also helps you not take the damage in those type of games. If you're playing against Valgavoth and there's group slug and the damage is just coming around, you can see my Valgavoth deck if you want. You want to encourage players to attack everybody else and continue draining their life and leave you in a position where you can pay your life into black market connections to do more things. And there you have a bunch of card draw here. And we have to have ways to deal with the opponent's cards. We have the Ever Faithful Swords to Plowshares. Path to Exile. So we're running both of them in this deck. You can see this is a big pile of interaction here. Treacherous Greed is a nice little one that I found that's an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a creature that dealt damage this turn. Draw 3 cards. Each opponent loses 3 life, and you gain 3 life. That's a lot of different items that you get here for sacrificing a 1/1 creature that dealt an opponent damage on the turn. So I do like this one, and at 3 mana, it's very affordable. In a tokens deck, it works well. The takedown card here deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker. Sometimes somebody gets a big creature that you can't deal with traditional means, and you can use your spell here to effectively throw the damage of equivalent to all your creatures at them. Ooh, and then we have an old school art, a lightning bolt. I've used this to finish people off in the game. Sometime people want to pay life into something so that they think they're okay. They're at 3 health, they're not going to get hit. They have defenders, and then boom, you hit them with the lightning bolt. Or you can put them within lethal damage because they calculate all these numbers. They say, oh, I can survive the swing of these 6 1/1s. I'll be fine. And then you hit them with the lightning bolt, and then they realize they're dead. Also great at taking out key creatures or combo pieces that are creatures that come on the board and you have to take out. So I know it's not in every commander deck, but I like it here in this one. Deadly Rollick. We do have some nice free spells in this deck, and that's definitely up the power level to a higher level bracket 3. Deadly Rollick, if you control a commander, you may cast that spell without paying its mana cost. This spell, exile target creature. This is great for those creatures that can keep recurring and you can never get rid of. This one just exiles it directly. And again, if you have your commander out, which is kind of the theme of the deck, it is free. Anguish Unmaking, 3 mana. Because we're in these white and black colors, we can do a lot of exile effects. Exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. So this is already like the 4th exile effect that you've seen here. And non-land permanent hits almost anything there, so it's great. Chaos Warp, if we need to hit that Glacial Chasm that everybody likes to play, or you need to take out a key land that can do something, this is the one that can do it. Also, it's nice to try and flip the cards into something else, and it's kind of exciting to see what they're going to end up with when you don't put it in your graveyard where they can reanimate it. Again, you're taking it fully out of the play, shuffling it into their deck, so they would have to tutor it out again. Great to use on stuff like game changers like Bolas's Citadel or something like that. We also have Disenchant from the nice classic artwork here. Looks very nice. Target enchantment or artifact must be discarded. So basically destroy target artifact or enchantment. And there are other ones out there that do different things. This is just your basic. This does what I need it to do. And it's an instant and I have it when I need it. Only 2 mana. It's the kind of cheap effect that I like to use. There's ones that cost more. You can maybe exile their One Ring and things like that. But, you know, we can get around that with our life drain and other effects. And then this card, Galadriel's Dismissal. I feel like this one is overlooked, but it is getting high on the monetary value. But it does so much because it's 1 white mana. You can target a creature to phase it out. So if somebody tries to kill your commander, you can hit it with this, phase it out until your next untap step. It comes back on your untap step and it's good, and nobody can do anything. If there's any board wipes or anything else, your commander still comes back. If somebody's trying to attack you with that Voltron commander that can do 1,000,000 damage and it has equipment on it, or it's just an 18/18 Voltron commander, you can phase it out until the next turn, effectively wasting that person's turn. Or you can phase out all of your creatures here if you pay the kicker cost and save your entire board from a board wipe. Or if somebody's attacking you with a ton of creatures, you can phase all of their creatures out. Or if you want to attack with all your creatures and somebody has creatures, you can phase all of their creatures out and then they'll have no blockers. So you can see why this card does so many things. And the bare minimum, it could just protect your commander. Great card. Flawless Maneuver, just another free spell. If you control your commander, it's free. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Again, we're building a giant board state of tokens. We have to get around board wipes. We also have Teferi's Protection so that somebody can try and board wipe, or somebody can do anything that deals damage to creatures, and we can disappear for a turn and then come back in full swing with all of our guys still having been on our board and saved. So you can see there some powerful instant speed spells. Look at all of those spells and abilities that we have there. That's a lot of different options that you have depending on the board state and what you need to do. Let me just show you a few more cards here that we have that are utility cards. So Theomancer, it doesn't make soldier tokens, all right, 3 mana, 2/2, but at the beginning of each upkeep, that includes the other players, if you control no snakes, you make a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch. And it's kind of amazing how many people don't want to attack into a Death Touch creature, because again, they're probably going to have larger creatures than you, but if you just have a Death Touch guy, then they don't want to attack into it and lose their 8/8 or whatever it is. And you can also keep sacrificing these for your own benefit, again, to your commander or elsewhere, and they come back. This card is just a powerhouse, so it's in the deck. Battle Angels of Tyr. 4 mana, 4/4 Flying Myriad, so he copies himself for each other opponent when he attacks one opponent. And then he has all these abilities. Draw a card if that player has more cards in hand than each other player. Create a treasure token if that player controls more lands than any other player. Then you gain 3 life if that player has more life than each other player. So you can see there you're drawing a card, creating a treasure, and gaining 3 life potentially if those scenarios line up. And the 4/4 Flying Myriad means that if somebody just cleared out your items, there's an empty board state, and you play this becomes a one-man army that turns into, you know, the Myriad effect here. So some of the cards, you have to be aware that you can hold those in your hand. You don't necessarily have to just rush out all of these good cards right away and then you get wiped out by a farewell or something of that sort. Again, you have to think strategically, just like Caesar, Legion's Emperor, would do, and think about how you want to play this out so that you have the best setup no matter what happens in the game and you can react to the other players. Then we just have some cool cards like Mishra, Claimed by Gix, from the Brothers War set. Is a lot of fun. 4 mana, 3/5. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of attacking creatures. This is pretty much another win con in the deck, and it's very similar to the Savina card that we had before, right here. So these are 3 different ways that we have to attack with a lot of tokens and drain the life of our opponents. And this one has the added fun, I don't know if you can see right there, but the meld ability, if you have another card in your deck, oh, you saw it, the Phyrexian Dragon Engine. So if you have one of these in your deck, you have to put the other one. This is just a 2/2 double strike. When it enters from the graveyard, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 3 cards. Usually don't do that in this deck. 5 mana is on Earth and can come out with haste. But the idea is that when you attack with both of them on the board state, you turn this into a amazing creature right here, which is Mishra, Lost to Phyrexia, and it can do some crazy stuff, as you can see here. Target opponent discards 2 cards, because again, as it enters, it's attacking. Mishra deals 3 damage to any target. Destroy target artifact or planeswalker. Creatures you control gain menace and trample until end of turn. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 until end of turn, or create 2 tapped Power Stone tokens. The -1/-1 is pretty nice because you can clear a board out in front of your attack. And again, this is a 9/9. The 3 damage to any target, again, works on the life drain stuff here. And the Planeswalker, sometimes people up the Planeswalker so they have them with high loyalty and we can't take them out. But this bad boy can take them out. But the main goal here is just, it's a ton of fun to meld a card and have a giant magic card on the table. That's the real reason we do that, right? So then we also have some tutors, just in case we're running into some trouble. We've stalled out maybe on our card draw. This is an interesting here. When it enters, you make a 2/1 black skeleton creature token and suspect it. It has menace and can't block. Then basically we're just sacrificing it to Caesar or to Deadly Dispute or something else. And then once it's solved on your end step, so that means on your next turn you can pay 2 mana, which is the cost of a demonic tutor, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. This is good because it sets you up as you build out the troops, just in time you'll have enough situation of this having the skeleton die and then being solved, and you paid the 2 mana to be able to do it, and you can get the card you need, like a Fervent Charge or a Shared Animosity, or one of my favorite ones, the Ruinous Ultimatum, to just wreck the entire board except for yours. We also have a nice full art Commander Legends Vampiric Tutor, which is pretty cool looking right there. So you can see a number of ways to get the cards we need here. Lots of different options in the deck to deal with everything that we have going on the board state. And just real quickly, guys, I'll go through the lands of the deck. We have some that are key here. We have Path of Ancestry because it's a soldier deck. It is nice to scry because we're drawing cards and we can really get to the cards that we need specifically. We have Diamond City. This one puts a shield counter potentially on your commander or another creature to protect it. Scavenger Grounds, another way to exile all graveyards. Again, if you're playing against an Aristocrats deck, this does a lot of work and you can end up taking out all the graveyards so you don't have to worry about it anymore. So it's good to hold on to this to when you need it. Minas Tirith, Lord of the Rings card, but you can draw a card if you attack with 2 or more creatures this turn, which happens a lot. Again, you see there's tons of card draw in this deck. And that's why we have a Reliquary Tower, so that this has, if you can read here, you have no maximum hand size. This is the special edition promo one or something like that. So it doesn't actually say that, but that's what it does. It taps for colorless mana. Great card to have in decks that draw a lot of cards. Nomad Outpost, traditional one. Command Tower from Fallout, which if you played the games, it's a pretty cool replication of that. Marsh Flats for our fetch land. Myriad Landscape, because it's great to just ramp a little bit. Again, we're not in ramp colors, and you saw that it's important to us to get high mana cost so we can cast like the X spells that we have. And again, just remember that this is basic lands of the same type when you use this one. Clifftop Retreat from Fallout, a Surge Foil Smoldering Marsh, Blood Crypt for the fetch land target, Isolated Chapel, Dragon Skull Summit, the Triumph, which would be the first fetch option that you would do if you can. Tainted Field, Canyon Slope, fetch option as well if you don't care that it comes in tapped. It also has cycling. Sacred Foundry, Caves of Koilos, Shadowblood Ridge, Tainted Peak, Desolate Mire, that looks really cool like that. Ash Barrens, this one I actually like in these 3-color decks because not the highest power level on it, but sometimes you just need the last type of the pip of mana that you need. So you can use this to pick it up, which helps a lot. Windbrisk Heights, this is one of the hideaway cards, and we're attacking with lots of creatures, so it should be easy to flip. Terramorphic Expanse, this is from Fallout. I have it in here. Usually you just switch this out for a fetch land, but we're not going too crazy with everything. And then you have your traditional mountains, your Fallout Plains, and the swamp is pretty cool from Fallout. Look at that. It looks very radioactive-y. There you have the lands of the deck. And you have the deck tech for Caesar Legion's Emperor with Mizrael Lost to Phyrexia. Man, if you ever get this to meld, I have done it at least once in games, and it's just a ton of fun. So hope you enjoyed the tech deck for today. If you want to check out some of my other videos on deck techs, check them out. If you like the color scheme, if you like black-red, check out Valgavoth that I have. But other than that, have a great day. Bye.